There is a parking garage in Monaco where a single square meter of space costs more than most people's monthly rent. Lately, tucked between the Ferraris and the Lamborghinis, something unfamiliar has been showing up. A white sedan with a blue badge almost nobody in that garage would have recognized 5 years ago. Not a Bentley, not a Rolls-Royce, Chinese, and parked exactly where a Tesla used to be. But that is not even the strangest part of this story. During the single biggest week on Monaco's calendar, the one week when every camera in the world points at that tiny stretch of coastline, something happened outside one of the Principality's most famous hotels that almost nobody outside the valet staff noticed at the time. It involved a lineup of cars that should have been Teslas, and were not. Stick around, because near the end of this video, I am going to tell you exactly what pulled up to that curb, and why it might be the clearest sign yet of where Tesla's biggest rival is coming from. Part 1. The ultimate proving ground. To understand what happened that week, you first need to understand why Monaco even matters in a conversation about electric vehicles at all, because on paper, it makes almost no sense. Monaco is 2 square kilometers. It has roughly 39,000 residents, and depending on the year, it holds more millionaires and billionaires per square foot than anywhere else on the planet. If a car brand cannot win over buyers here, the logic goes, it has no business calling itself a status symbol anywhere else in the world. For close to a decade, Tesla held that title among electric vehicles in Monaco. Now, a wave of Chinese manufacturers is taking it away, and how they are doing it says a great deal about where the entire EV industry is headed next, including whether American driveways are next in line. Casino chips, a famous race, exotic cars parked 3 deep outside every hotel. That is the version of Monaco most outsiders carry around in their heads, and none of it is wrong. But underneath the glamour sits a set of incentives that make this one of the strangest, most revealing car markets anywhere, and none of them have anything to do with the harbor view. There is no personal income tax in Monaco. That single detail has shaped its entire population. Wealthy individuals from Russia, the Gulf states, Western Europe, and increasingly Asia have relocated there for decades specifically because of it. The result is a resident base made up almost entirely of people who chose to live there, rather than people born into a local car culture. Unlike Detroit, unlike Stuttgart, unlike Turin, Monaco has no domestic auto industry and no hometown brand to root for. Nobody grew up loyal to a local manufacturer the way someone in the American Midwest might feel about a Ford or a Chevrolet passed down through the family. The people living there arrived from dozens of different countries, carrying dozens of different relationships with cars, or, in plenty of cases, no fixed relationship at all. That detail matters more than it sounds. It means brand loyalty in Monaco has to be earned fresh, every single time, from every single buyer. Nobody has an inherited pull toward one badge over another. Residents are simply looking at what is parked in front of them and asking a blunt question. What does this vehicle say about the person driving it? And is that worth the price on the sticker? On top of that demographic quirk, the Principality has spent years trying to position itself as environmentally progressive, an odd goal for a place famous for supercars and yacht-lined harbors, but a real one nonetheless. Government initiatives have pushed to cut emissions, expand charging infrastructure, and streamline the approval process for manufacturers hoping to bring electric models into the market. For a Chinese company scouting a foothold in Western Europe, a place with immense buyer wealth, minimal red tape, and no entrenched brand loyalty to overcome, Monaco starts to look less like a long shot and more like an open door, so they walked through it. Over the last several years, brands including BYD, Zeekr, NIO, and XPeng have all built a presence in and around the Principality, either through dealerships inside Monaco itself or through showrooms just across the border in neighboring French towns that cater directly to Monaco residents. What began as a handful of curious buyers testing an unfamiliar name has turned into something else entirely. A genuine threat to Tesla's grip on the wealthiest EV buyers in the world. Part 2. The Arc of Disruption. That expansion did not happen evenly. It came in stages that mirror how a new brand typically earns its place in a market this small and this closely watched. First came the quiet arrival, a single showroom tucked a short drive across the French border, aimed at buyers who already had a reason to go looking. Then came visibility, a car spotted at a marina, a valet stand, a private members club, enough repetition for the badge to start registering with people who had never actively searched for it. Then came momentum, the point where a brand stops needing curious early adopters and starts attracting buyers simply because their neighbor, their business partner, or their favorite hotel concierge already made the switch. Each of the major Chinese brands now active in the region has moved through that same arc, some faster than others, and the ones that reach the third stage are the ones now cutting most directly into Tesla's territory. To see why that threat is landing, start with the most obvious factor, then work down into the ones that actually explain the shift. The obvious factor is price, though in Monaco, price behaves differently than almost anywhere else. Most people buying cars there are not weighing a $150,000 sedan against a $40,000 one. They are weighing a $150,000 sedan against a $200,000 one, and the calculation has almost nothing to do with affordability. It is about value relative to prestige. When a Chinese manufacturer rolls out a fully loaded electric sedan with premium interior materials, sophisticated driver assistance technology, and styling that reads as expensive as any European luxury badge, and prices it noticeably below the German and American competition, that gap becomes dinner table conversation. Buyers start questioning why they should pay extra for a familiar name, when a newer challenger is offering comparable, and sometimes superior, engineering for less money. Price alone tells only part of the story. And in Monaco, the more interesting numbers show up after the sticker price, in the paperwork almost nobody outside a dealership ever sees. Several Chinese brands operating in and around the Principality have structured lease and financing arrangements specifically designed for high-net-worth buyers who are less concerned with monthly payments than with flexibility and turnover. 2- and 3-year lease terms with the option to swap into a newer model well before the vehicle shows any real wear have become common. An arrangement that appeals to a buyer base accustomed to changing cars the way other people change wardrobes. Some dealerships have gone further, offering complimentary registration, extended service packages, and white glove delivery, where the vehicle simply appears at a client's villa or hotel rather than requiring a showroom visit at all. None of that is unusual among ultra-luxury brands generally. But it is notable that companies barely known in Western Europe a few years ago have already matched, and in some cases exceeded, the level of white glove treatment long associated with established European manufacturers. For a market where the buying experience is often as important as the vehicle itself, that kind of attentiveness closes a credibility gap far faster than advertising ever could on its own. Part 3. Engineering identity, price, and service open the door. What keeps a buyer coming back, and what turns a single sale into a wave of neighbors and friends making the same choice, is something harder to manufacture. A reason for the car to reflect who its owner wants to be seen as. BYD has carved out a reputation as the smart, understated choice. The pick for people who could easily afford something louder, but would rather put their money into a car that performs exceptionally well without announcing itself. In a city already saturated with supercars and superyachts, there is a specific kind of prestige and restraint, and BYD has found an audience of buyers who prefer to signal wealth through quiet confidence rather than volume. Zeekr has gone the opposite direction. Its cars arrive in striking colors, aggressive body lines, and performance numbers built to turn heads on streets already full of vehicles designed to do exactly that. Zeekr owners are not trying to blend in with the sedans and the Teslas. They are trying to stand out on a stretch of coastline where standing out is practically the entire point of owning a car in the first place. Parked outside the casino or lined along the harbor during race season, a Zeekr reads less like a practical purchase and more like a deliberate declaration. And in Monaco, that declaration carries genuine weight. NIO has built something closer to a devoted circle rather than a mass following. Its vehicles arrive with distinctive technology, from onboard AI companions to cabin experiences designed to feel more like a private lounge than a mode of transport. NIO has not become the default pick for any single type of buyer the way BYD or Zeekr has. But the people who do choose it tend to become evangelists, bringing friends to the showroom because they genuinely believe in what the company is building. XPeng, the newest of the group to arrive in the region, has leaned hard into flight-adjacent technology demonstrations and driver assistance software, marketing itself less as a car company and more as a mobility technology firm. That framing lands particularly well with the wave of hedge fund managers, crypto entrepreneurs, and early tech employees who have relocated to Monaco in recent years, chasing the same tax advantages that drew previous generations of wealthy residents. A crowd more inclined to value engineering novelty over a badge with a century of racing pedigree behind it. Each of these companies figured out something that is remarkably easy to lose sight of once you grow large enough to start chasing volume above everything else. And it is the same thing that is about to explain exactly what happened at that hotel curb we promised you at the start of this video. Part 4. The Grand Prix Turning Point. Every spring, the Monaco Grand Prix turns the Principality into a global stage. Streets normally reserved for quiet, wealthy residents fill with visitors from every corner of the world. And for years, that week was when Tesla's presence in Monaco felt strongest. Its cars lined hotel entrances. They ferried VIPs between yacht parties and paddock suites. They were a fixture of the scenery for anyone with a phone camera trying to capture the glamour of race weekend. Tesla had built genuine credibility there, not merely as a car, but as a piece of the Monaco lifestyle itself. During this year's race weekend, that credibility looked visibly different. Outside one of the Principality's grandest hotels, the fleet arranged to shuttle VIP guests between the paddock, the after-parties, and the harbor was not the familiar row of Model S and Model X vehicles that had handled the job in years past. It was a mixed lineup, with several Zeekr and NIO models slotted directly into rotation alongside the remaining Teslas, chosen by an event coordinator who later explained the decision came down to guests specifically requesting something they had not already ridden in a dozen times before. For a hotel built entirely around giving wealthy guests an experience money cannot easily buy elsewhere, even something as small as which car picks you up matters. And this year, novelty won out over habit. That single choice is a small detail on its own, but it captures the larger shift happening across the Principality. Tesla is not disappearing from Monaco. Far from it. But the sense of exclusivity that once defined the brand there has thinned. And the reason has less to do with the cars Tesla builds today, and everything to do with a strategic decision the company made years earlier. Far from Monaco's shores, Tesla chased volume. Across markets well beyond this tiny coastline, the company pursued scale aggressively, selling into fleets, into rideshare operations, into bulk contracts that prioritized the lowest possible acquisition cost. That approach made Tesla the dominant EV brand on Earth by raw numbers, and there is no taking that away from them. But in a place like Monaco, where a car's worth is measured partly by how rare it feels, the same strategy worked quietly against the brand. When a resident spends a serious sum on a Tesla because it feels like a marker of forward-thinking wealth, then watches an identical model pull up as an airport transfer vehicle outside a hotel lobby the following week, the emotional value of that original purchase shifts. The car stops feeling like a personal choice and starts feeling like a shared commodity. And commodities rarely carry weight in a city built almost entirely around scarcity. Chinese EV brands walked directly into that opening. they studied where Tesla's positioning had started to soften, and they moved in with sharper, more deliberate branding aimed squarely at buyers who wanted something Tesla could no longer promise them with the same confidence it once could. Rarity. Part 5. Beyond the Riviera. None of this is confined to one small principality on the Mediterranean coast. Monaco functions closer to a testing chamber than a typical market. It is compact enough that a handful of aggressive marketing pushes and well-placed showrooms can leave a visible dent in the numbers, and wealthy enough that any success there sends a message to every other luxury market watching from a distance. Winning over buyers who could purchase literally any car on the planet without a second thought about price is a far stronger proof point than winning over budget-conscious shoppers anywhere else. It tells competitors and investors alike that these companies are not merely offering cheap alternatives. They are legitimate contenders in the luxury conversation. Full stop. There is a bonus wrinkle to this story worth sticking around for, one that connects directly back to that hotel lineup. Several of the drivers who worked that fleet during race weekend mentioned something to local reporters afterward almost in passing. Guest requests for Chinese EVs had roughly doubled compared with the previous year's event, unprompted, before any marketing push from the manufacturers themselves. Word of mouth among the ultra-wealthy travels differently than it does anywhere else. It does not need billboards or television spots. It moves through concierge desks, private chauffeurs, and dinner conversations at properties that most people will never set foot inside. Once that word-of-mouth machine starts favoring a brand, momentum tends to build a great deal faster than traditional advertising could ever manage on its own. That momentum is exactly the message Chinese manufacturers seem to want the rest of the world to hear, particularly one market in specific, the United States. America remains largely closed off to mainstream Chinese EV brands, held back by a combination of tariffs, regulatory hurdles, and political tension that shows no sign of easing anytime soon. But the pattern unfolding in Monaco, and in comparable wealthy enclaves elsewhere, offers a preview of what could happen if those barriers ever come down. Tesla built the charging network, built consumer trust in electric vehicles as a category, and built the cultural link between EVs and forward-thinking status in the first place. And now, in market after market where genuine competition has been allowed to take hold, newer, more precisely positioned Chinese rivals are showing up to make use of the road Tesla already paved. Tesla still holds real advantages in the United States that it does not necessarily carry in Monaco. Its domestic charging network remains far larger than anything a newcomer could replicate on short notice. And for a large share of the public, Tesla is still the first name that comes to mind when someone says electric vehicle. Those are not minor advantages. But 5 years ago, Tesla held a similarly commanding position across Monaco and the broader Gulf and Mediterranean region, before the same volume strategy that built its dominance started working against it with image-conscious buyers elsewhere. The takeaway is not that Tesla is finished. It is that dominance in this category carries far less permanence than it once appeared to. And the company willing to understand what buyers genuinely want, not only on a spec sheet but on an emotional level, tends to win the next chapter, regardless of who won the last one. If Chinese EV brands ever gain full access to the American market, the Monaco story suggests price will only get them through the door, the same way it did here. Winning American buyers long-term will come down to the same homework these companies already did on the French Riviera. Figuring out what an American driver wants people to think when they see the badge, and building toward that, model by model. None of it was an accident, and none of it came down to a handful of picky guests chasing novelty for its own sake. It was a small, visible symptom of a shift that is already well underway across the wealthiest zip codes on the planet. The only real question left is whether it eventually shows up in a driveway a lot closer to home. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit subscribe so you catch the next one, and let us know in the comments. If Chinese EVs became fully available in the United States tomorrow at a real discount to Tesla, would you actually buy one? Or does brand loyalty still win?